How big is the Great Sphinx of Giza really? Egypt has many pyramids of various sizes and qualities. However, there is only one Great Sphinx. It stands among the pyramid complex on the Giza Plateau. With a human face and a lion's body, it gazes solemnly ahead with a serious expression. Just like the surrounding pyramids, the Sphinx is a massive structure, about 74 meters long, 19 meters wide, and 20 meters high. Its face alone is 5 meters wide, and its ears are each 2 meters long. Like the 3 large pyramids nearby, the questions of who built the Sphinx, when it was built, and why it was built, remain a mystery. Because it stands next to the Pyramid of Khafre and shares a similar style, it is generally believed to have been constructed during the reign of Pharaoh Khafre, around 4,000 to 5,000 years ago. However, the academic community does not fully agree. In the various inscriptions discovered from Egypt's Old Kingdom period, including tomb inscriptions, stellus architectural texts, temple carvings, and more, there is not a single mention of the Sphinx. In other words, during Khafre's era, this colossal statue was completely unrecorded. It wasn't until the New Kingdom period that the statue suddenly appeared in records. Not only present, but revered as a noble and sacred image. What happened? About 3,400 years ago? The Sphinx's body was completely buried in desert sand, with only its head visible. One day, a young Egyptian prince named Thutmose wandered into the desert. At midday, he arrived at the statue, sat in its shadow to rest, and unknowingly fell asleep. In his dream, the statue spoke to him. It sounded like a solemn deity, but its tone was warm and fatherly. It said, "My son Thutmose, I am your father, Harmakuska Priyatum." These are names of several ancient Egyptian gods. I grant you sovereignty over my domain, and the supreme power over life. My face is yours, my heart is yours, because you are my protector. But look at my current state, like someone in need of help. My perfect limbs are dismembered and the desert sands have covered me. Save me. After waking up, Thutmose returned with a team of soldiers and began excavating the statue. They dug and dug, until the entire statue was unearthed. The following year, whether by divine blessing or coincidence, Thutmose became pharaoh, known in history as Thutmose IV. He later placed a stone stele between the Sphinx's front paws to commemorate the event, and proclaimed to the world that his kingship was divinely ordained. This stone became one of Egypt's most important artifacts, the Dream Stele. From then on, the Sphinx was worshipped by ancient Egyptians as the Horus of the horizon. Horus, in ancient Egyptian mythology, was the protector of the pharaoh and a symbol of royal power. As for who originally built this sacred statue and whose protector it was meant to be, the ancient Egyptians didn't seem too concerned. After all, this ancient land is full of ancestral treasures. Based on this, some scholars have suggested that the statue may have been constructed before the known Egyptian civilization. It simply remained buried under sand for many, many years, until the time of Thutmose IV. The mystery of the Sphinx's age. Sphinx is a name given by the ancient Greeks over 2,000 years ago, because the statue resembles the mythical creature in Greek legend that had the body of a lion. Although people generally believe the Sphinx stands next to the Pyramid of Khafre and was naturally built by Pharaoh Khafre, about 4,500 years ago. In 1857, the founder of the Cairo Museum, Mariette, discovered a commemorative stele believed to date from Egypt's 26th dynasty, about 2,520 years ago. The inscription on the stele tells of Pharaoh Khafre discovering the Sphinx buried in desert sands. This suggests that the Sphinx predates the Pyramid of Khafre. But by how long? The body of the Sphinx bears very noticeable wave-like erosion marks. Geologists have long believed that these markings were caused by wind and sand erosion. However, this explanation doesn't clarify why the statue's face doesn't have similar erosion. In the 1950s, some Egyptologists proposed that these marks were caused by floodwaters, which would have submerged only the body and not the face. Hence, the face was not eroded. In the 1990s, American geologist Robert M. Schoch from Boston University supported this theory, suggesting that the flooding could have occurred at the end of the last ice age, roughly the time of the Younger Dryas period. He believes the statue existed before that massive flood thousands of years ago, before our current civilization. He points to clear signs of long-term water erosion on the Sphinx. Furthermore, in 2008, two Ukrainian scientists, Vyacheslav, the first Manichev, and Alexander G. Parkhomenko, published a paper arguing that geological changes in the Giza Plateau showed that around 800,000 years ago, the Nile overflowed to a level that would have reached the Sphinx's neck, precisely where water erosion is visible. Based on this, they suggested the statue may have already existed 800,000 years ago. From a geological perspective, they argued in depth that the erosion marks on the Sphinx were caused by wave energy rather than wind and sand. This is because the wave-like indentations are highly consistent with those found on the cliffs of the Black Sea coast. Meanwhile, rocks in the nearby area that have been eroded by wind and sand show clearly different patterns from the Sphinx. Therefore, the two scientists concluded that it is plausible the Sphinx was submerged underwater for a long period. When their paper was presented at the 2009 International Conference on Geoarchaeology and Archaeomineralogy, it caused a global sensation. After all, it's generally believed that the Sphinx and the nearby pyramids of Khafre and Khufu were made from the same type of megalithic stone. If the Sphinx truly dates back 800,000 years, could the pyramids be that old too, or even older? In fact, this phenomenon is not unique to Egypt. In distant North America, geologist J. Harlan Bretz discovered mysterious ripple-like landforms on the Columbia Plateau, some 1,500 meters above sea level. He proposed that these formations were caused by a cataclysmic flood. However, his theory faced skepticism because no one could explain where such an immense amount of water would come from. How could a flood cover a plateau 1,500 meters high? Despite academic opposition, Bretz was undeterred. He spent 30 years publishing 30 papers. In 1965, during a debate against over 30 challengers, he finally gained recognition. By 1974, satellite images provided the final confirmation for the Great Flood hypothesis. 5 years later, at the age of 97, Bretz received the Penrose Medal from the Geological Society of America, the Society's highest honor. The award statement read, "Although the Great Flood hypothesis was long disputed, a photo taken from a satellite 900 kilometers above the Earth has provided definitive evidence of the scope and nature of this prehistoric disaster." If the Sphinx had really been submerged underwater for a long time, over 10,000 years ago, it raises a major question. By common understanding, humans of that era were still in the Stone Age, using stone tools, wearing animal skins, and hunting wild animals. How could such people have had the tools or capability to construct a colossal statue like the Sphinx? The Sphinx is over 70 meters long, 19 meters wide, and as tall as a 6- or 7-story building. Does this mean that the age of the pyramids could also trace back to 800,000 years ago, or even earlier? Could that be possible? Is that really possible? Halls of Amenti, underground archive. Compared to the mystery of its age, there's an even more intriguing riddle within the riddle of the Great Sphinx of Giza, its purpose. Why go through the trouble and effort to build such a massive structure if it wasn't meant for something important? The once famous Mars Boy Boriska, who gained attention over a decade ago for his uncannily accurate prophecies, claimed that in his past life, he had visited ancient Egypt. He said that the Sphinx holds deep symbolic meaning and that there is a hidden mechanism behind its ear. When this mechanism is activated, the Sphinx will be unsealed, and that will mark a time of great transformation for humanity. At that moment, the ultimate secrets of Mars, Earth, and mankind will be revealed. and human technology will undergo a tremendous leap forward. Some curious individuals went to investigate and did, in fact, find a hole resembling such a mechanism near the ear of the Sphinx. However, it was blocked by a stone. When people asked Boriska how to open it, he replied with meaningful ambiguity, saying he advised humanity not to forcibly open it at this time. When the time comes, he said, humanity will naturally grasp the method and steps to open it. He went on to say that the Sphinx contains all the history of Mars, Earth, and humanity. It holds the secrets of the relationship between Sirius and life in the solar system, as well as the technological knowledge of interstellar travel, even the secrets of the formation of the universe, and many mysteries will ultimately be answered. Another messenger will descend into the world. When that time comes, the truth will be fully revealed. When asked when this messenger would appear, Boriska refused to answer. When pressed further, would this messenger appear as a great scientist? He replied that the person would be even greater than a scientist, as he would be nearly a universal genius. Coincidentally, Edgar Cayce, the American prophet known as the Sleeping Prophet, also spoke about the secrets of the Sphinx, and his claims astonishingly aligned with Boriska's. Cayce said that in a past life he was an Egyptian priest and knew that between the Sphinx and the Nile River there is a grand hall preserving records left behind by Atlantis, filled with wisdom meant to enlighten future generations. The entrance, he claimed, lies beneath the right front paw of the Sphinx, where a hidden chamber leads to the hall. However, he also said it is currently inaccessible due to protective barriers modern humans cannot surpass unless we await the fifth human race, i.e., the beginning of the next civilization. This hall is also known as the Halls of Amenti. It is richly described in the Emerald Tablet, a revered text among medieval alchemists. The Emerald Tablet originated in Egypt, and its authorship is unknown. It is attributed to the mythical trinity Teredo, Hermes Trismegistus, based on Egyptian legends. For true Western alchemists, alchemy was a spiritual practice, refining the self. To them, the Emerald Tablet was a guide for seeking enlightenment and elevating spiritual awareness. The most widely accepted version contains 15 chapters, and Chapter 2 is titled The Halls of Amenti. The very first lines are direct. Deep in Earth's heart lie the Halls of Amenti, beneath the sunken island of Atlantis. Halls of the dead and halls of the living, bathed in the fire of the infinite all. Far in the past, lost in the space-time, the children of light looked down upon the world. Seeing the children of men in bondage, bound by the force that came from beyond, they knew that only by freedom from bondage could man ever rise from the earth to the sun. Down they descended and created bodies, taking the semblance of men as their own. The masters of all, they formed from the ether, taking forms that were like unto men, dwelling among them yet not being of them. These verses seem straightforward, perhaps even resembling a creation story, and not too difficult to understand, right? The last stanza says, "Now again, I go to the halls of Amenti, leaving behind me the darkness of night. Keep thou and preserve my record, guide it to those who will come after." So, in the Emerald Tablet, the Halls of Amenti are also described as a place that preserves ancient records. Consistent with the accounts from both Cayce and Boriska, Cayce once predicted that this underground archive would be discovered in the late 1990s. Unfortunately, that prophecy has not been fulfilled. To this day, no one has seen the true face of the Halls of Amenti. However, in the 1980s, American and British scientists used seismic surveys and discovered what appeared to be a vast underground complex beneath the Sphinx. Yet, the Egyptian government and antiquities authorities strictly prohibited anyone from accessing this forbidden zone. This led many experts and the public to wonder, has Egypt already discovered something too shocking to reveal? Could Cayce's prophecy have actually come true? Perhaps in an effort to dispel public doubt, on March 3, 1999, the Egyptian government made an unprecedented move. It allowed archaeologists to begin excavating a queen's pyramid of the 4th dynasty, and a mysterious nearby tomb, all in front of cameras from the US Fox network. This event drew wide attention, as the tomb was located in the very area suspected to contain the Halls of Amenti. However, what was discovered during this excavation remains a tightly kept secret, as the Egyptian authorities have offered no further disclosure. It seems the mystery of the Great Sphinx may really have to wait until the beginning of the next human civilization to be fully unveiled. What do you think?
Subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss what's coming next. Share it, because some stories are meant to be discovered together. And stay curious. I'll see you in the next chapter.